Welcome back to our devotion. Today's Friday. I'm going to give a recap of the week at the end of our lesson today. And Lord willing, next week we'll jump into that second virtue, that virtue of joy. Today we're talking about love and how it's the foundation of the Spirit in our life and how that leads to an abundant life. This is what Jesus said in John 10 and 10. I have come that you may have life and that you may have it to the full or more abundant life. So this is God's design for us from the beginning, is for us to live in abundance. Now, I'm not talking about riches of this world. I'm talking about in the abundance of the work of God, of the Spirit of God, and of the things that come through the fruit of the Spirit. That's truly where our riches come from, the blessings of God in our life, not from whatever the world can offer us. And I think that many of us live with the mindset of, I just need to get by, I just need to exist, when truly the fruit of the Spirit in our life is always an abundant harvest. It's never just a handful. That's not the way that the Spirit operates. It's overflowing. It is a gift that keeps giving and keeps flowing in our life. And it is about it's about flourishing. It is about abundance and about joy, about overflow. And so when we talk about love, we need to understand that love is something that leads to an abundant life, a life that is full of the blessings of God. When we look at a vine with grapes on it, that's what we've been talking about, because it's the symbolism that is used there in the book of Galatians chapter 5. When a vineyard is in full bloom, it is so beautiful. And that's what spirit-filled love brings to us. It brings that energy, that blooming, that flourishing, that harvest. And the roots are going deep, the branches are stretching wide, they're in their place, they're in their purpose, and the fruit multiplies. Life in the Spirit is not shriveled up. Life in the Spirit is not a shrinking. It is expansive. It is growing, and that's what God wants for our life. So we have through this abundant life that the Lord has promised us through love, there's this incredible feeling of joy that goes with it, because we see that the fruit is turning sweet in our life. That's what happens. Those grapes at one time are very sour. Perhaps you've had a sour grape sometime in your life that wasn't completely ripened, but then it turns so sweet and so full of life, and it comes because of the warmth of the sun. The sun brings that ripening, and that's what the Spirit does to our life. It brings us to that place of just this incredible development of joy in our life, of understanding in our life, of fortitude in our life, of long suffering in our life. We'll talk about long suffering later, but there is this overflow. That's what our life is all about, because we know that the work of the vineyard doesn't end at the vine itself. It also ends with the grapes that are gathered, that are pressed, that are poured out to bless so many people. And that's the way that the love of God is at work in our life. It's at work in our life, not just to bless us, and it does, but also so that our life can be a blessing to so many others. When we walk in the Spirit, our life becomes a current for the love of God to flow through us and to help other people. And truly, when we're in that place where we're helping and the Spirit is flowing through us, that is the abundant life that the Lord wants for all of us, that life of usefulness. A great story in the Bible that really demonstrates going from that mindset of despair and destruction to the joy of the Lord is found in the book of Ruth, this little short book in the Old Testament. And in that story, there is Naomi, who has suffered so many things: the loss of her husband, the loss of her two sons, and she's living in a foreign country. And so she returns to her home in Bethlehem. And as she's going, one of the daughter-in-laws says, "I'm not going to let you go without me." And the name of that young lady is Ruth. And so she tells She tells Naomi, I'm not gonna leave you. Wherever you go, I will go. This is Ruth 1:16. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. And so Ruth made this choice. It was a sacrificial love to just be loyal to Naomi, who, by the way, her name means mournful. Uh, I don't know how you feel, but I don't know that I want to travel with a person whose name was mournful or bitter. And that's what Ruth did. And she goes along, and they go back to this place where they have nothing. But this is what happens when they get there. God provides through the harvest. Ruth is out gleaning in the field. In other words, picking up the things that were left behind the workers, and there's more than enough. And actually, when Boaz sees her, he commands his servants to leave even extra. So she's gleaning more than she ever dreamed of. Isn't that the way it is with God? He always gives us more than we ever dream. And then there is the restoration that takes place in her life. She lost a husband, but she gains another one in Boaz. In Naomi's life, she went from bitter to joyful. She lost a husband and sons, but now through Ruth, she has another son. And not only is that a blessing to Naomi, but it's also part of the lineage of Christ. So not only was there provision, not only was there restoration, but there's also now this legacy that Ruth and Naomi have because they're a part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. That sacrificial love that Ruth had of following Naomi and the blessings that came because of Boaz, the kinsman redeemer, which is a foreshadowing of Christ who pays the price for us, is this abundant life that they lived. They went back to Jerusalem with nothing. And by the end of the story, they are blessed. They are taken care of. They're living in a happy relationships. And oh, what goodness God has for us. Spirit-filled love works the same way. It never settles for survival. It never settles for just getting by, but it presses through the hardships to bring that flourishing, that overflow, that living in that life that God has for us. So this is what I think you should do. I think you should choose love even in the seasons of lack. That's what Naomi and Ruth were in. They were in a season of lack. They didn't have much, but they chose love. They kept going on. They fought through it. I challenge you to see love as the pathway to overflowing. See that that's what happens. And Ruth's loyalty to Naomi was positioning herself to receive the blessings of God and to see the love of God, the overflow of God. So the purpose of the vineyard is always the harvest. Yes, it's beautiful. Yes, it's something that is pleasing to the eye. But the ultimate goal of the vineyard is to produce this fruit, these clusters that are so abundant that they overflow the baskets and that the vineyard is successful, not because of its beauty, but because of what it produces. That's what the love of God wants to do in our life. It wants to produce what God wants for us and how God wants to lead us. So, we first of all talked about love, how that was the foundation of a spirit-filled life. Galatians chapter 5 is the first of the 9 virtues that are mentioned there. Then we talked about how love was uh, it was something that reflected God's character. We saw it in Jesus Christ, and it also should be in our life. Remember how John said, God is love. We also talked about how love should be put in action. Again, the words from the Apostle John in First John, he said that our love should not be in words and in speech, but in action. Then we talked about how the love in action would heal division. Remember the words of Peter. He said that we needed to love deeply, and that if we love deeply, that it would cover a multitude of sins. And then we conclude here today for this week's lessons on love when we talk about how if we really have the love of the Lord flowing through our life, that it will lead to abundant life. And I believe that's seen in the book of Galatians chapter 5. Love is mentioned first, but love leads to joy and to peace and to all of the nine virtues. So God's design has never been for us to survive, but always to flourish. And I pray that you will seek the love of God to be alive and active in your heart. Hey, thank you for joining me this week. And I look forward to next week when we talk about the incredible virtue of the Spirit, which is the virtue of joy.